You are listening to the Partner Up podcast by Welcome to Bundaberg. I'm Gayle Reynolds, and in this series you will hear from community leaders who are kicking big collaborative working together goals. We will highlight the successful partnerships, shedding light on the positive impact they have had on both businesses and the community. Welcome to Bundaberg aims to improve the health and well-being, work and lifestyle outcomes for people living in Bundaberg by activating and implementing a range of community-led strategies across a range of services for a more connected, cohesive community. Let's go. Before we start today's episode, I would like to acknowledge country. I would like us to take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place and connection. In the spirit of reconciliation, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we live, work and love on. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging of all the lands, and I extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today. Okay, so today we're here with Cristy Murphy from the IWC in Bundaberg, who is the local NDIS partner.
Yes.
For our region. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Please tell us about who you are and what you do in our community and what we need to know.
Okay, my name's Cirsty and I've been working in the disability community for about 15 years now. I started as a support worker in my 20s. It was really interesting because I was having a conversation with the First Lady that employed me a couple of months ago. And I said to her, you told me when you employed me that it was all about going to the movies and shopping, and it was none of those things. But you changed my life because I found the passion of where I wanted to be and what that was going to look like for my career, and I've never looked back. So I've been in disability since before NDIS. I've seen it roll over to NDIS. I've been a part of rolling NDIS out in the community. I've been in service delivery under NDIS as well, and back at IWC to around that partnership there for local area coordination. So I've been here, there and everywhere in the disability community for the past 15 years and I've seen a lot of things and a lot of positive changes, a lot of places that we still need to move to and work together to achieve for people with a disability in this community. But yeah.
Great, thank you. So we first met a few years ago now through a local community organisation, the All Abilities Alliance. Can you tell me about the Alliance and what your involvement has been and what that looks like for Bundaberg?
I can. I started attending the All Ability Alliance pre-NDIS, so back in 2011, and it used to be held. It used to be held at an array of different providers, and I can remember everybody from disability sector in Bundaberg went to these meetings, and it was a really back then collaborative approach around what people with a disability needed, how we were going to action that. What the barriers were and how we could all work together and assist our participants in the community. It was pretty different back then because prior to NDIS it was a lot of block funding, you were allocated it by the government, and NDIS changed that a bit. But I remember sitting in this room with predominant people around Bundaberg who worked in this sector and went, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing I've ever been to in my life. And that kept going. When NDIS came into play though, it stopped and it shifted because the industry changed. And then 2 years ago we met and we had a conversation about the All Abilities Alliance. It was still around. And IWC back then, a part of one of their community projects, revamped the AAA of what we know of the All Ability Alliance today, to bring it back to a collaborative approach of providers and people in the community working together. And it's had change over the years. It's a great change where it is more focused on that collaborative approach back to where it used to be.
Yeah, that's nice. I think when I first met you and I was started attending those meetings, I was really surprised as well because it was the first time when I was being kind of immersed into this world of all of these different providers and organisations and private businesses in Bundaberg who traditionally may have looked at themselves as competitors.
Yes.
But they were all coming together, all having a seat around the table. No one felt like they had any more clout than anyone else.
Yeah.
They all felt really equal and they all had a say.
Yeah.
And they were all raising really pertinent conversations, questions, struggles and challenges that they were experiencing.
Yeah.
And it was a really great space to be a part of.
Yeah.
So with your experience in the disability sector in Bundaberg and working across a number of different organisations at all different levels, can you help share a story about a time when you were a part of a really exciting project that has come about because of those trusting collaborative relationships?
I think when IWC first took over that Ability Alliance and kind of revamped it post NDIS, we had wasn't our first Options Day, but it's the Options Day that we now know that has come about. And
Tell people what Options Day is.
So Options Day is a day where people in the disability community come together, where that's providers, community, mainstream supports, and we come together, one, to celebrate people with a disability, to be inclusive and to have different pathways of assistance for those people with a disability to make up their map of how they connect in their community. So it doesn't always have to be funded supports. There's community and mainstream supports that play a role in that, and it's all about coming together and navigating that with participants. Because we want to be an inclusive town. We want to make sure that everybody has access to something that I would be able to access, that you would be able to access. And I can remember the first Options Day in the NDIS world where providers came together and it went back to basics around that collaborative approach. And it was held at the multiplex at the time. And the NDIA came, they did a little TV show story on it. Participants came and engaged. There was all different types of counsellors. I believe the mayor came, where it just was a day that celebrated people with a disability. There's actually a photo that I forgot about that's actually on our IWC NDIS Community Connected. It's a photo of me with a young gentleman that's now in his 20s at Options Day. And I think the look on my face says it all. I've got this big smile and he's looking and he's holding his bags and he's just having the greatest time. And I love Options Day for that and that connection and where they feel safe, included and supported. And it's like their social event, kind of like the Ability Ball, because it coincides with Ability Ball, Disability Action Week back then. And it's just a week all about them and it's just the best.
Yeah.
It's just the best.
Why do you think it was so rewarding for everybody?
I think it's rewarding for everybody because I think there comes a time when you work in this industry and it can be hard and you need to come together and really see what it is that we do and what we do achieve. And to do that, you need to see the people that you're supporting. Mm-hmm. You have to be on the ground and you have to be immersed in that with people with a disability and having conversations with them and connecting them and seeing how their life has changed under the new NDIS and what that looks like. And I can't think of anything more rewarding than that. And I think as the years go on, the conversations get bigger and more and we work out things that we probably don't do right and we continue to improve. They're always at the forefront of that and people want to make sure that participants are at the forefront of it as well.
And with those events, and I know you're reflecting on that event a few years ago and then we've, obviously had subsequent events since then, what part did you play and who was involved with the, putting together organisation and how did that all work?
Collaborative, again, when we came together 2 years ago and restarted because it dropped a bit again, we worked with the likes of Karen Bundy, Tina, Jade Law, who has predominantly been part from All Abilities since the beginning, coming together to really set in stone this day for people and how it was going to look moving forward. We've been able to, since then, I was lucky enough to be the MC for the last 2 years of Options Day. But I think the biggest reward, and I was thinking about it today as well as I prepared to chat about this, is what I've loved is that connection that we've had with every single person who's had a part to play in that, and that collaborative approach of wanting to make this bigger and better, but to also take on the feedback of the people that it's actually about and have them really involved in that day as well and what that looks like for them. And I think it continues to grow because we all have that same footprint of where we want to be, and that's inclusive and people with a disability at the forefront.
And so would you say that that's probably one of the best things that comes out of those types of events that happen in a community?
I think so, because you have that. I end up learning about so much other stuff that people do when they provide as well, and it expands, anything to expand your network expands other people's networks, and that includes people in our community as well. And I think the thing that I love the most, Gayle, is that everybody comes together and it doesn't matter who they are, where they're from. It's really gotten to the place where we can have that approach, whereas I think when NDIS first started, everybody was very shielded around what that looked like, and a little bit of fear from both people with a disability and providers, and that's dropped, and we don't experience that as much anymore, which is fantastic because it should never have been like that.
I think one of the things that I really like about Options Day is that a collaborative approach to bringing it all together.
Yeah.
You know, multiple people from different organisations who are all playing their role in the community, all coming together to make sure that this event comes back every single year.
Yeah.
And, you know, the All Abilities Alliance is a small grassroots community organisation, not funded by anybody. It's organically grown from the need within the community.
And how good is it that every time we do it and we reach out to, like Hits FM last year, we discovered that participants love Maddie and Trace from the radio, so we contacted them and they took time out of their day, and it was such a highlight when they walked in, and we had the photo wall. And, you know, Rotary Daybreak are there every year, hands down with the sausages, no issue, or Desi with a coffee van. And it's just that network of people that get to expand on, and people with a disability get to meet new people as well that they may never have even connected with before.
Yeah, and that's a really good point of, you know, there's all of these other businesses or services, just people in the community, other community groups who come along to be a part of the day, really experience and get immersed in what's happening. And I remember the first time that I went along, I was just completely blown away by this really, it was just this vibe of excitement. You know, there's karaoke up one end and people singing and dancing and playing, and then, you know, that there's a sensory zone down the other end that's all quiet, and you've got some fidget toys and noise cancelling headphones and all sorts of stuff happening down another end. And it's a really good representation to showcase to not only the businesses that are in the sector, but then all of those people who are visiting, and that ripple effect that then happens, like you mentioned, those organisations that may not necessarily step foot into that world, but then now being exposed to all of those different things.
And they'll tell you at the end of each time that they love it, invite us back, we want to be a part of it. It's every single time.
Yeah, that's such a good thing for the community.
Yeah.
So, what do you think are like the main contributing factors for a really good partnership? Like, so when you're thinking about, you know, things that you've done in the past or that you're looking at doing in the future, what is it that you look for in those partner organisations or those collaborative networks?
I'll be really honest. I worked with the most amazing woman years ago who has a son with a significant disability. And she used to always say, nothing with me without me. And I've always learned from her around how it's not about us, and to make sure when we're collaborating that the people that it is about is at the forefront of that. So if you're not prepared to be at the forefront of people with a disability, then you have to back away, because it doesn't become about a specific provider or a specific purpose. it becomes about that greater community of people with disability, and that's what I always look for. And thankfully, I've never come across people who don't want to be part of that either. Like in Bundaberg, I haven't come across people have that agenda of I'm doing it just for this. People always want to come forward for a person with a disability, and I think Sharon at the time really taught me to have those conversations with families and people as well, because sometimes they can be difficult, and we might think that we're doing a really good thing, but always to make sure we go back to that community to make sure it is correct and that we are inclusive, because we might think we are, but we're actually not, and be open to have those conversations. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people that I have worked with are.
Yeah, and I think, you know, sometimes when you start working with all different people and all different organisations, you can get those different perspectives on what that means, but also when you bring people together, you get such a better outcome. Yeah, you know, people are there. It's a wraparound support. Yeah, because not one organisation can support a person. No. I'm pretty sure it was you. I remember having a conversation with probably a year ago around really ensuring that people have a full community around them. Yeah. And it's not just about one organisation or one provider being able to provide everything for that person.
No, it's not. It's about building up their network so that one day when you do step away, because you're going to at some point, that you know that when you do that, they're safe because they have got a network around them. They know their community. They know who's in it. They know where they need to go. And it's so important to continue to build that as well.
So when you know, do a bit of daydreaming and think about the future, what does it look like in terms of the disability sector, the Bundaberg community, the outcomes for having that person in the centre?
Great question, Gayle.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. I think for me, we still have a long way to go in terms of inclusivity, and I think there's a lot of education that needs to be done. And I think, you know, like I said, we'll think that we are being inclusive, but we're actually not. And I was having this conversation with someone the other day around what can we do as the next step to have businesses or people in the community be more accepting of people, and what that looks like. And I don't know what the answer to that is or how we can navigate it, but I know that if anybody in this community can do it, the AA group can come together and figure that out with the disability community around those things that still need to happen. You know, simple things like we might think that I would love to see in the grand scheme of things, like this whole entire town connected. If you're in a wheelchair, you can't go anywhere because the whole town's not connected. But people don't think of that. They think that the pathway's there and it's fine, but then it might not even be connected on the other side, or it dips, all those types of little things that we probably don't think about, that actually exclude people. I think of the showground. I'm very open with the council that the precinct at the show, have you ever pushed a wheelchair on it? Because when it's rocks, it is so bumpy and it's uncomfortable for the person that's in the chair. It's not safe. So when the Bundaberg show comes around, it's not really accessible because you can't really push on that terrain. It's things like that we need to be mindful of. Anybody in the community should be able to go to an event or a place without fear of, am I going to get in there? Is that going to work for me, and how does that look? And we've got a long way to go in those types of terms. So inclusivity is a big passion of mine and something that I really want to drive and be part of with the disability community around what that looks like. But we do have a really long way to go. Yeah. I can remember going years ago to when the NDIS rolled out in the North Gwinnett and doing some work out there, where I met a gentleman who was in a wheelchair, and he had never been in any shop in that town because the way that the main street was built, he was in a wheelchair. They were all high up, so they didn't have ramps. And his wheelchair was so big anyway, so even if he could go in, he wouldn't have got into any of the shelves. So he had to wait outside for somebody to come to him, and he'd have to tell them what he wants. So they'd have to bring it out. He couldn't just go and look and go and get what he wanted, take his time. He literally could not fit in any of the stores. Luckily, he did say to me he could fit in the pub because it was flat ground around the back. So, but, you know, you wouldn't have ever thought about something like that. And that story has always stuck with me, that this gentleman had never been in any of the shops.
And that conversation has then impacted you, you know, many years down the track to advocate and to be a real driving force to promote inclusivity in our region. And that's a real pillar for the All Abilities Alliance, is to make sure that people in our community are heard, that their voices are listened to, and that we actively try and make changes. And that's not just around the disability community, but it's like you said, it's all businesses and all people.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so is there anything else you'd like to add today?
Well, thank you for having me on. I do enjoy speaking about, you know, I'm really passionate about the community that we have here and the disability community. And I really invite conversation post this podcast, and I'm happy to have those conversations as well around what can I do differently and how can I be inclusive and what does that look like. And I'm really happy to chat with people around that.
Yeah, and I think that's a real one-on-one conversation. Like, as a community, there's a lot that we can do, and we can be actively trying to learn and participate in those conversations or events where we can learn more and try to engage people within our community who might know more than us. And then I guess that there's other ways, like businesses like the IWC and the LACs who have that open door, come in and have a chat to us. How can we help?
Absolutely. And it's always open. The IWC is open for everybody in our community, and more than happy to have those conversations as well.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's been a really good conversation. And please reach out to Cristy if you would like some more information around this topic, and we will be back. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this episode. If you would like to listen to future episodes, you can follow or subscribe to Welcome to Bundaberg on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Welcome to Bundaberg.